This podcast is for anyone tired of sitting on the couch watching fucking Netflix. For anyone who wants to know how to break the 9-to-5 slave life. For anyone who wants to be better tomorrow than they are today. I want to help you learn how to break the cycle. This is your story, and you have to write it. Come on in. We're just getting started. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Getting Started podcast. As always, I am your host, Sean Bustard. Today I have an incredible guest with us, Mr. Drewbie Wilson from Break Free Academy. Drewbie, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I am well, Sean. Thank you so much for having me on the program. I know we've been connected for quite a while now, and so it's pretty awesome to see how far you've come. And I know when you were getting started with everything, it's just awesome to see how far you've been able to take this and truly dedicate to getting this podcast started. And I'm glad to be connected with you, man. I appreciate you having me on to share my story and provide some value to your audience.
Thanks, man. Yeah, man, we've been connected for a little while. We've, talked about a few things here and there, and I'm glad to have you here, man. I've been wanting you on here for a while. Of course, today's been a very hectic day. We had the Nashville tornadoes last night and all kinds of craziness going on here today. But I'm not letting it stop me. I'm not letting the force of average get to me today. I'm powering through, and man, I'm ready to get into this and let everybody know just how you got started and where you're at today, man. Because I've seen, I didn't know you when you first got started, but I've seen the moves you've made since I started this journey, and man, you have grown probably faster than I've seen anybody grow so far. And it's a testament to the work you put in and the work you do. And man, I'm glad to know you.
Well, dang, man, I appreciate that. It has definitely been kind of a whirlwind journey for me, man. So a little backstory, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is Drewbie Wilson. I am the vice president at Break Free Academy, where I work closely with Ryan Stewman. And we work with success-driven individuals and help them become the most elite version of themselves by implementing something we call the G code. And so, it was kind of a crazy – it's interesting to think that I've just now been with this company for a year, and even in personal development have only really been a part of this, lifestyle and this community for about 18 months to maybe 2 years at most. Basically, where I came from was I used to live in Toledo, Ohio. I was kind of a less than stellar student growing up. I kind of slacked off and slept through a lot of classes, but I always showed up, and when it came time to doing the work, I wasn't afraid to get down to business. So like on tests and things like that, I always, showed up and did pretty well. I just didn't love like the monotony and the tedious stuff. And so I kind of went through this phase where I was a little bit of a rebel and kind of got into some trouble, got in like most kids, smoking dope and selling dope and causing a little bit of a ruckus. But the great thing is I always had a pretty solid group of people around me that were, keeping me on the right path. While I was doing some things that were a little bit off, color or whatever, there was always my mom and my family and the people around me who were pushing me to be, a better version of myself. And so along those lines,
that a little bit, man.
All right, go ahead.
What was your childhood like, man? Like, were your parents entrepreneurs? Were they, your typical blue collar workers? Like, how did you get involved into this entrepreneur? Like, did you have that sort of like family push to, I guess, inspire you into this sort of realm of do it yourself, working for yourself and being your own boss? Or was it just something you sort of grew into as you got older and things like that?
That's a great question, Sean. So I grew up in kind of a broken household. My dad was in and out a lot from when I was, a young kid. He had a lot of stuff going on. Now my dad was more the entrepreneurial one. He, was the one that was selling dope and causing a ruckus when I was a little guy, which is probably where I got it from, right? But he always kind of did his own thing. He had started multiple different businesses while I was growing up. Unfortunately, none of them did very well. A lot of them ended up going under. So there was a lot of lessons that I was able to take away from, hey, as I moved into this entrepreneurial space and kind of became my own boss and even just becoming part of the workforce, I realized like, hey, first of all, no one's going to give us anything. If we want it, we got to go out and earn it. And not only do we got to earn it, but we got to keep it after we've done so, because that was an issue I faced a lot as a kid. And one of the things I deal with now as an adult was, my connection with material things. So for us growing up, we would get, new dirt bikes or new, Xbox systems or whatever it might have been. And then, a couple weeks or a month later, it would be gone. And it would be like, oh, well, we had to sell it because some bad business deal or whatever. So I got like this weird, connection to material things. But the point of the story with that is just saying, I've seen a lot of that entrepreneurial side through my dad, but I also saw what I didn't want to happen because none of his businesses ever made it. He's always, I hate to say failed in everything he's done, but it's kind of the truth. But, on my mom's side, she raised 3 boys as basically a single mom. I mean, my dad was in and out a lot when we were younger. So sometimes he was there and a lot of times he wasn't. So my mom had to really, do everything that was possible to provide for us. And so I can remember being in elementary school and my mom was working 3rd shift at the gas station from like 10 o'clock at night to, 5 o'clock in the morning, coming home, getting us up for school, making us breakfast, making sure we had everything, getting us to school, dropping us off, then driving an hour south to a town in, mid-Ohio, Findlay, where she was learning how, taking college classes during the day, coming home from school, getting us out, taking us home, making us dinner, getting things ready, and then going right back to work at 10 o'clock. So I developed this like insane work ethic by watching my mom. And so, it was kind of a combination of things. Like my mom was the hard worker, my dad was the entrepreneurial one, and I just kind of tried to absorb the best of both worlds there.
Cool, man. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, I kind of share a little bit in common. I've got several other older brothers and sisters, but they were way older than me. So I grew up in a house with 3 boys myself, and me and my 2 little brothers, I know we definitely caused absolute chaos, and it's what boys do, And my
Absolutely.
mom was definitely the one. She worked at graveyard shift, had us up, got us off to school, and definitely instilled that hard workforce in us too. So man, all right, so let's get you're going to school. You've got this, your mom's working. I don't even know if she's sleeping at this point. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
So,
So as we grew up, my dad left a picture when I was in my teens. And so basically my mom raised us pretty much by herself from when I was, 12 or 13 all the way up into, young adulthood. And so she was just always on the grind. I mean, she would get up and she would drive an hour to work 12 hours, drive an hour home, and still figure out some way to like feed us and take care of us and do stuff around the house. So I always have had this crazy work ethic in that sense, but it didn't come until like much later on. So when I went through high school, as most teens do, I was rebellious and kind of a shithead and just didn't want to like abide by authority, I guess is the best way to put it. And so I kind of slacked off a little bit. I never did homework and slept and I skipped a lot of class, but I always still showed up at test time. So like when it came down to the tests and the things that was like, hey, can you prove that you know this stuff? I always did fine. I always aced them, like never had any issues. So like up until 18, I was kind of just like a slacker. Like I said, I was smoking dope and getting into some trouble. But when I turned 18, my mom had become a nuclear pharmacy technician. And so she worked at a hospital and she worked in a special department called nuclear medicine, where basically it's similar to an x-ray, except they watch like your blood flow and your heart, things like that. And so she got me connected with the company where they ordered their specific drugs from because they got radioactive materials shipped into the hospital. And so she's like, hey man, maybe you can just get a job like doing deliveries just to make a couple of bucks or whatever. And I don't know, just get the hell out of my house, I guess. So, I went to Cardinal Health and I applied for the position doing deliveries and I got the job pretty easily, right? Because I had an in and whatever. So
now was this your first job?
Yeah. So this was like my first legit job. I had one job previously where I was like a busboy at like 13 for a restaurant around the corner, but it didn't last like but a week. And then this Cardinal Health would have been my first like real big boy job. Basically, I was tasked with delivering or picking up radioactive materials. So I basically showed up at 12 o'clock at night, drove an hour and a half north, picked up a case of radioactive stuff, put it in the truck, drove an hour and a half south, delivered it, did my thing and went home. And so that was like my job for the first couple of months. Well, what I would do is I'd go to work, I'd do the deliveries, I'd get back to the office. And instead of just like sitting around killing time, I'd be like, well, hey, what can I do to help? Because I'm the kind of person that I'd rather be doing something because I find that passes the time a lot more than just like sitting around waiting, watching the clock. And so I started asking, hey, what can I do to help? Where can I plug myself in and be, a value to you guys? And so that was like a very early on lesson that I didn't realize I had, was that work ethic was in, me just showing up, trying to pass the time. These people saw it as like, hey, this guy's doing more than he has to do. So like, we appreciated that. So it wasn't, a month or two later, I got invited to be in the lab worker, which was like, I didn't have to drive, 6 hours a day. I got to work in the laboratory where they made up the medicines and did all the compounding. So I was like, well, I don't got to drive anymore. That sounds good, because I've been falling asleep at the wheel like every single night for the past month or two. Like it's
Hey man, that's a definite problem. Especially, I do a lot of driving for work too, and yeah, and you don't even realize you're doing it half the time. You just sort of do. Whoa, okay, I got this.
Yeah, it's scary, man. And there's more times than I care to remember where I definitely was in some situations I shouldn't have been. And, looking at one sign and blinking and looking and seeing another sign that's like 10 exits away and going, I don't know how I made it. But, it blessed, thank the universe and the Lord and whoever was watching over me and my angels, that I'm still here. But yeah, so I ended up going into the lab, working in the lab for about 2 to 3 months. And then again, I was just a hard worker, man. I was just running circles around people trying to, pass the time and just be the best I could be there. And I started getting promoted. And I became a technician in the lab, and I got a raise, and I was the youngest person in the country to be a nuclear medicine pharmacy technician at the time. And so the story kind of just goes like, I kept getting into this situation where it was like, the harder I worked, the more rewards I started getting out of it. So I kind of developed that feel for myself, and, just understanding like the more you do, the more you end up getting paid for. So I was a nuclear pharmacy technician for about 3-ish years, but the night shift just killed me, man. I got real overweight. Right now, as of this morning, I'm like 198 pounds because I've been working on my diet. But back then I ballooned up to like over 315 pounds, I think was the biggest I ever was. You wouldn't believe it looking at me now, but
I cannot imagine you being over 300 pounds. That is absolutely just mind blowing right there, man.
Yeah, so I got pretty big. I was, eating real bad and just chugging caffeine and not sleeping. And so I realized that wasn't going to work for me. Like I couldn't maintain that kind of lifestyle.
Well, especially because I know you're big on biking, man. And I seen a picture that's been a while back. I guess it was you in college with looks like a mongoose of some variety and a vert ramp built in the middle of the apartment or something like that, or.
Yeah, so I'm a big BMX riding fan, so I've always done like freestyle BMX, that silly X Games shit. And so when I was younger, like I said, in those days, we caused a little bit of a ruckus. So that picture was from a house that we had on one of the college campuses where there was 4 of us that all lived together, and that house was a lot of fun. We'll just leave it at that. That house was a lot of fun, right? But yeah, so I ballooned up. I got really big, super unhealthy, and said, I can't do this anymore. So I went and got a job as a bouncer. I don't know. I got plugged in with one of my cousins was dating a guy who owned a club, and he's like, yeah, man, you can come and work for me and you'll make, more than what you're making now. And you can just work a couple nights a week or whatever. So, yeah, all right, that sounds cool, man. So I went and became a bouncer. Worked as a bouncer for a little while. The guy who owned the club saw me again, running circles around people. When the night was over, I'm cleaning up bottles and taking stuff out and taking the trash and whatever. So he came to me and he's like, hey man, I have a cigar shop that I own as well. I need somebody to help me out. So if you're looking for some extra daytime hours, like I can plug you in over there. You'll be able to make a little more money. So I don't know anything about cigars, but I'm looking for opportunities. So I'll take it. Ended up going and working at the cigar shop. And loved it. It was a cool job. I got to hang out all day. I got to smoke, quality cigars. I got to have cool conversations. And so this is where I started learning like from business owners, right? So now I'm working at a retail cigar shop, but I'm kind of starting to learn how business works, how to price things, how to order inventory, how to have sales
kind of
conversations.
The back end type. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How to have someone come in who wants to buy a $5 cigar and then have them walking out with $25 worth of different things, the upsell process and some of that. So I kind of looked at it as like, yeah, it was a job, but I always thought, the more I take away from it, the more valuable it will be for me. Because, yeah, I get a paycheck, but I'm getting some, real world experience on managing a business and running a business. Here, same story, man. And I hate to toot my own horn about it, but it's crazy to think about. Like at each job that I've ever gone to, I just show up and do the work, and I don't complain a whole lot. I just do what I got to do. And so a few months after starting the cigar shop, the guy pulls me aside and says, "Hey, man, I want you to be my manager." Your manager? I was like, "You got a guy here. He's been here 15 years. Like he does a good job." He's like, "Yeah, but I want you to be the manager. If you want his job, you got to go and let him know that, hey, you're taking over." So here I am, 22 years old. I've got to go back and tell a guy who's 65 and been running the store for 15 years that I'm going to take over as the manager, and he's just got to deal with it. So it was a very crazy situation. But I went to Harry and I said, "Hey, Harry, like I'm not trying to come across as a jerk, but Kyle wants me to start running things, so I'm going to start being the manager. All I ask is that you and I can work together and make sure that we're on the same page so that the things still operate here. I basically want to make your job easier, take some of the the stuff off of your plate, and I'm just going to put in the extra work." And so I became the manager of the shop. We ended up going from like $300,000 a year to up over $500,000 a year in revenue. We got voted the best cigar shop in Toledo at the time. So I was like, this is crazy. Every time I showed up and did the work, things just kept getting better. I kept getting the promotions. I kept getting, moved along. And that's kind of the story of how I've got started. It's just like getting an opportunity, taking that opportunity, because I think one of the big issues with a lot of people is that an opportunity presents itself and they don't jump on it, but then using that opportunity and combining it with hard work to be as successful as possible no matter where I end up.
That's awesome, man. I'm sure the conversation with Harry probably wasn't as pleasant as you just made it sound, but but that's cool,
pretty
man.
Cool, man.
It's and that's one thing that even I've done. It's just I guess it got instilled in me as a kid too. If you show up and just don't complain, do what you're told, and don't sit around. Hands in pockets is like the worst thing you could do anywhere on any job. And I was always taught not to do that, and it's led for different opportunities for me. Obviously, it's led for you amazing opportunities.
Yeah, man. We haven't even got to the fun stuff. It's crazy to think like the progression to how I ended up here.
Yeah, man. Hindsight being 2020, you can look back and just like you see how it happened, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that's really how it happened. That's pretty awesome. So all right, so how old are you at this point?
So right now I'm 32. When I was running the cigar shop, I was 22. So it was about 10 years ago.
All right.
So I ran the cigar shop for a few years. The guy who owned it came in about 2 weeks before Christmas in 2008 and was like, "Hey, man, you've done a great job, but I got to let you go." I'm like, "It's Sunday, man. What are you talking about?" It's like, "Yeah, things are, you're just, things aren't working out. I got to let you go. I appreciate everything, but I got to let you go, man." And I'm going, "Well, it's Sunday. I'm supposed to be here tomorrow. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. Like, something didn't add up."
Sounds funny
right?
there, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a weird situation. Long story short, the guy ended up getting into some financial issues with a bunch of his businesses, and I don't think he got shut down, but I think there was some pretty serious stuff that ended up happening. So it was a blessing in disguise. At the time, I didn't realize it. I mean, it's 2 weeks before Christmas. The thing I've been doing for 3 years that all I know has just been pulled out from underneath me. It was a pretty devastating moment. But
hey, man, he was saving you from getting your kneecaps busted in, man.
Listen, I didn't know that at the time, though, Sean. It's interesting, but yes, in the future, come to find out that I got very blessed to be out of there, at the time I did. So I got let go and kind of fell on my face, honestly. 2 weeks before Christmas, nobody was hiring. There was no opportunity showing up at that moment, but I just kept doing what I had to do, putting in resumes and pounding the streets, having conversations with people. Ended up getting a call from someone who was a customer at the cigar shop. He's like, "Hey, man, I work over at this furniture store. I don't have a lot of opportunity, but I've got some tax season stuff coming up where we're going to get a little bit busier for a couple months. If you want to come in, I can only pay you straight commission, but you're a pretty good sales guy. I think you'll do okay." I'm just like, well, I don't know anything about furniture, but I'll take whatever opportunity I can get, right? So I showed up, talked to the manager. He basically says, "Hey, man, I'll bring you in as a trial. We'll kind of see what happens. I can't really guarantee you anything because I don't want to pay you. I don't know you. I'm like, it's cool, man. Just put me on commission, put me on the floor. Let me do what I got to do. I'll make it work. And ended up in the month and a half that I worked there selling just about $150,000 worth of furniture.
Wow. Furniture,
Yes.
huh?
Pretty cool. Didn't know anything about it. But again, the whole thing for me wasn't about selling someone. When someone came into the store, my biggest thing was, how can I help them leave with what they need? Not what they want necessarily, but what they need. Because I can sell people what they want, but what you need to be able to do in any sales position is having a conversation with the client to get to the deeper root of the problem. Hey, what brought you in today? What made you decide to start shopping for some new furniture? And it's the same with any business or industry. Like, hey, what made you decide to reach out, right? So basically when people came in, I would just be very cool and, hey, what brought you in? How can I help you find anything? I'd show them what we had, and then I would just ask a lot of questions and get them talking and build rapport. And yeah, man, $150,000 worth of furniture, which wasn't too far off of what the guy who had brought me in sold, and he had been there for 10 years. So I started kind of getting more confident in my sales ability, thinking, well, I was selling cigars, and then I was able to come over here and sell furniture. So when a family member reached out and said, hey, I'm starting this insurance agency. I want you to come on board and be my number one sales guy. I thought, well, shoot, I mean, I'm getting better at sales. I might as well give it a shot. So I ended up going and selling insurance for about 5.5 years before I came over here to Break Free Academy. And same thing in insurance, man. I just showed up. Didn't know a damn thing about insurance. Didn't even at that time, I think I was 24 or 25, didn't even have my own insurance. I was probably still on my mom's coverage at that point. Like, just a young kid trying to figure it out. But I just did the work. They sat me down with a big sheet of paper and a bunch of leads and a ruler and a phone and said, hey, have at it. So I just pounded the phones, man, just did the work. Ended up doing, while I was there, anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 a year in annual production. So when I left at the end of 2018, early 2019, I had probably pretty close to $2 million in insurance sales that I had done, over the course of that time.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a lot. I don't know. I don't think it's that much because I knew there was a lot of other people that were doing like crazy numbers back then. But I mean, it was top 5% for our market. So I was, fairly successful there. I got invited to speak at several events by, our field leaders and things like that. And, again, the whole point of this podcast is getting started. But I think my story is really about every time I've had to restart or get started again, the biggest lesson that I've taken away is just show up and do the work. Just don't complain. Don't cause a ruckus. Just ask, hey, what do I need to do? Know exactly what that is. And then say, okay, well, what else can I do when this is done? Just going above and beyond, giving that extra bit of effort has made such a world of difference. So again, was insurance. At that point, I had to figure out lead generation and marketing because I was like spending thousands of dollars on these crappy internet leads. Couldn't get much out of it. So I started thinking, well, what can I learn to do this myself? How can I generate these leads without having to pay $30, $40, $50 a piece for them? And started understanding, getting an idea how online lead generation works and social media marketing and things like that. So I started, using some of the programs. So like Phone Sites was the first program I started using to build sales funnels and websites so that I could do lead generation. Well, wouldn't you know, I start using the funnels, have a little bit of luck. And then the people that were in the users group were asking me, hey, how did you do that? How did you do this? How did you figure that out? So I just started creating these tutorial videos. I didn't really know what I was doing, but every time I'd figure something out, I just went and created a tutorial video and shared it back inside the group. And my whole selfish thought was, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm figuring a couple of these things out. So let me share it with the people who can't figure it out in hopes that somebody smarter than me will step in and say, hey, man, I see what you're up to. Here's how you want to do this, or here's how you can do this a little bit better. So it was kind of like this weird back and forth of like, hey, I'm going to give kind of expecting something to come back, but it's also like the law of reciprocity, which I'm sure you've read a lot into. The more you give, the more you gain. And so I just kind of kept believing in that. It was hard at first. Like, I'm going to give away all these secrets and everybody's going to know how to do this shit. Why would I want to do that? But I had a friend that said, listen, man, all the stuff that you're doing, you can learn on Google. All these people can figure it out. But if you're the one that steps in and makes a video and shows them how to do it, and you make yourself the authority, people are going to help you. It's going to come back and
Yeah, you
full.
establish yourself as the expert, and you're the one they're going to turn to every time. And let's just face it. I mean, I hate to say it, most people are just too damn lazy to go Google something anymore. Google is the easiest, fastest way to learn something, and we just live in that age, man. And it's kind of sad, but you were out there, you were able to bypass Google and help loads of people. I know that when I was still using phone sites, I asked you several times about different things, and you were able to help me out, and I found several of your videos very, very helpful.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And that was the big thing, was just like, how can I help more people find success? I've kind of come to this realization that my success, the amount of success I have in my life, will be in direct relation to the amount of success that I can bring to the people around me and those in my circle. Because it's the law of reciprocity, man. The more you give, the more you gain. Zig Ziglar says, hey, if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you'll start to get what you want. And so that was my big thing, was like, let me just help as many people as I can and see what happens. And so I was doing the tutorial videos, helping people inside the group. And in December 2018, Ryan Stewman, the guy I work for now, the hardcore closer, the CEO of Break Free Academy, one of the biggest influencers and coaches in the world right now, he called me on Facebook Messenger, and I'll never forget the day, because I didn't have Facebook Messenger. So it started making like, I had like the Messenger screen open, but it like started making all this crazy ruckus, and I'm like, what is going on here, man? And I saw this Ryan Stewman's calling him, going, what in the heck? Like, that's awesome. So he and I chatted for a little bit, and basically he said, man, hey, I see you in my group. I see you're putting in the work. I want to bring you on board as part of my support team, because you're basically doing all the stuff I need someone to do anyways. So you're just going to keep doing that, except now I'm going to pay you for it. And so that was kind of like my path to getting started with this whole online digital marketing and influencer space. Basically, I went through this trials and tribulations for sales and marketing and learning how to do all that. And then I started teaching other people how to do what I was doing with some success. And the opportunity just showed up in my life for, with Ryan reaching out and being like, hey, man, I like what you're doing. I want you to come on board and help me help more people. And so that's what I did. Came on board as part of the tech support team, started doing some support calls and some, answering tickets and whatever. Very quickly, what I found is that while I was doing those support calls and helping people out, they were asking me, hey, well, how do I do this thing? Or how do I do that thing? Or what's up with this other program that you guys have? So I just started answering questions. Hey, here's how you could use this, to do that. Here's how you could take this program and do that with it. And so people were like, well, yeah, I'm interested. How much is it? So, well, it's, X price or Z price or whatever it was. And I just started kind of like stumbling across sales just by being a support person. And it all came back to just giving help and providing value, and people wanting to return that favor through me making, like, hey, I want you to be able to make this sale. Like, you deserve it. You help me out. And so I started making a couple of sales, and Ryan's like, dude, you're in the wrong business. Like, you should be helping people. Like, you need to quit the insurance world. Come work with me. I will mentor you. I will help you, and we will change a lot of lives together. So
okay. So you're doing all this while still doing the insurance game then?
Yeah, so I was doing all of that tutorial videos. Basically, I was working, selling insurance from, 9 to 5, and then coming home, doing family dinner, and then working on like my side hustle from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. every night. And
so now how is your family handling? Because I know you're married. You got a wonderful little duder there. And a lot of times, I speak with a lot of people that, their number one complaint is the reason, and you and me have even talked about this before, it's not what you do from 9 to 5, it's what you do from 5 to 9. And I've talked to a lot of people before that when they try to do anything from 5 to 9, their wives are jumping down their throats and, and you know how wives can be sometimes. And so how are you able to, quote unquote, close her into letting you do this and not, giving you like some Lorena Bobbitt style treatment?
To be fair, there was a bit of that as well. So here's kind of the crazy thing. My wife is like my biggest supporter. She is my right hand. She has always been there for me. When I got into this entrepreneurial side of things, as far as like taking on this side hustle and kind of building some of my other businesses and things like that, she was a nanny. So she went and she was a nanny all day. And then we got home around the same time each day, and we'd have dinner. And, I'd put my son down to bed at about 8 o'clock. And so for the most part, when he went down to bed, she was like, I'm tired of being around children. I kind of want to go out. So she was going out and hanging out with her friends and being social and doing that sort of thing. So it was kind of nice because I had the ability to, like, she was doing her thing and I went on and I was doing my thing, which it sounds cool, but eventually it did lead to issues. Like, so her and I definitely had some problems where it was like, hey, you're only focused on work, or, hey, you're just going out and that's all you care about. And so there was definitely a struggle, and it's still a struggle. I mean, as an entrepreneur and someone who's constantly focused on building a business and being hyper focused on, responding and answering questions and being on social media and connecting with people, it's a struggle to make sure that you're focusing that time. But one thing that we had to get very clear on this year, especially, is that you have to be able to shut down. Like, if you go 24/7 for too long, you're going to run out of gas. You're going to burn yourself out. And for me, I live and die by a calendar now. So, like, I'm up at 4:30 every single day. I do an hour of cardio, and then I get off there. I do some meditation. I create some content. I get myself cleaned up. By 6:30, I've got breakfast, coffee, everything's rolling. I'm getting my son up. So between 6:30 and 7:45, when I get them out the door, where he's going off to school and she's doing her thing, that's family time. I do my absolute best to put my phone away. I focus on having breakfast with my son every morning, getting him dressed and ready for the day. Same thing at night. When I get home from work, I have to turn my phone over and put it away for an hour and, make a hard promise to myself not to look at it, not to touch it, because there have been times where I've gotten guilty of, like, just being on 24/7, and it's caused issues. Like, I'll be very, open and upfront about it. Like, our marriage had some problems because I was so focused on one thing and just going full speed ahead and not taking the time to shut down and be present, right? Like, I was there, but I wasn't always present. And that's as important as just being there, because if you're there in spirit, or if you're there in, physical form, but you're not there mentally, there's really no connection to be had. So that's definitely something we struggled with. But one of the great things, like I said, my wife is super supportive, and she's always been on board with me going after what I think is going to be the best fit for our family and our long-term survival. So while she knew it was kind of a struggle, she was still supportive and encouraging of me going out and, going through this process and building my business and getting to where I am.
That's awesome, man. It's always good to have an A+ MVP on your team, and it definitely sounds like she is the MVP of the team. And y'all definitely sound like an all-star couple, and I definitely look forward to seeing the Wilson power couple in the future for sure. So let's get back into it, man. You talked to Stewman. You're making some odd and end sales. He's trying to pull you away from insurance and get you more into, Break Free Academy. So how is this going? Because I know it wasn't that long ago that you actually packed up and left where you were living at and moved you and your family and everything to Dallas.
Yeah, man, it's been a crazy year. So I got on the tech support team, started making a few odds and end sales. And he reached out and he's like, listen, man, I think you're in the wrong business. I want you to come on board. I want to coach you. I want to help you. I want to show you how this works so that you can help others, be super successful and go on to change their lives. It was hard, man, because I had 6 years in the insurance industry. I had a well over $1 million book of business that I was selling from that, brought me pretty good income every year. Not great. I was probably making, after commissions and bonuses, maybe $50K a year. But to somebody that barely graduated high school and had zero college education other
That's
than
good
2
money,
weeks,
yeah.
like, that was quality money. So I'm thinking, like, shit, man, I've got it pretty good. But I knew what was possible, right? I had gotten into lead generation and marketing, and I had done some kind of side hustle stuff and made some money. So I knew I was capable of doing a lot more than, $5,000 a month, let's say. But I couldn't do it half in, half out. Like, I was trying to work at the office, and I was telling the guy, like, man, I've got these opportunities and I want to take them, but I don't want to leave you stranded because you've helped me out a lot. And so I was basically, in February of 19, I flew down for a 2-day event that Brian was hosting for Funnel Closer Live. While I was here, I was in the room. I could feel the energy, and I just knew. I was like, this is where I need to be. These are my people. This is what's next for me. So when I flew back, had a conversation with the agency owner, said, listen, man, got to put my 2 weeks in. I'm going to go all in on this because I know that's the right step for my family. So March 1st was my official date where I left insurance completely and come on board full time with the Break Free Academy and Phone Sites teams. And again, I was basically just like a support guy who was getting a very minimum salary and just making sales like by being a support guy. So I started doing that, and I was flying back and forth a couple times. So I came down 2 or 3 times in February, 2 or 3 times in March. In April, we had the $1 Million Mastermind event. So I came down for a couple of days. I flew down on like a Wednesday. The event was Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, I stayed in Dallas with a friend of mine. He kind of showed me the area, and I got a feel for things. And I kind of realized, like, again, man, this is the place where I want to be. These are my people. This is where things are happening. But it was tough on the family because I was traveling a lot at the time. My son's only 2.5, 3 years old, and we're going through those struggles of like, I'm building a business and growing and staying busy, and my wife is having to deal with that side of me not paying enough attention to her and the family, and it was a struggle. So I did, for that first half of the year of 2019, all the way up until June or July, I was traveling back and forth to Dallas twice a month, spending a couple of days here, flying back, staying a week, and then coming back. So I was just a lot of travel, and I quickly realized, like, this is where I need to be. So her and I had a pretty serious conversation. Said, listen, we have a house here in Toledo. We own it. The market's good. If we sell it, we can definitely walk away and make money and not be underwater or have any issues. We'll be able to set ourselves up down there. And so we had that hard conversation. Flew down in June, let her check everything out. She saw the area, decided that she could be comfortable living here. Flew down in July, spent a week in July while I was here for an event. And she was just scoping out places to live and getting things figured out. And when we left in July, we left with a lease for a condo down here. And so we moved down at the end of August. So that was it. Not even 6 months after starting with the company full time, we moved our family from Toledo down to Dallas. When we got down here, it was the craziest thing happened. Like we flew down, we moved in, got everything set up. I came in the first week of September. Ryan called me into the office, and he's like, all right, man, I've got some good news. I got some bad news. And I'm like, all right, well, what's up, man? He's like, well, the bad news is you're fired. What? He's like, the good news is you're getting a promotion. So because I had done so well in sales with Break Free Academy, and I had so many different things going on as far as like we've done a lot of interviews, and I've built a course now, and there's just a lot of stuff that I've been, had done in that 6 months. Basically, he said, I want to take you off of the tech support team at Phone Sites. I'm going to fire you from Phone Sites, but I'm going to make you the vice president of sales here at Break Free Academy, and I want you to spend your time focusing on that because I think that's truly where your value lies, helping people, showing them the way, helping them, become a part of the program and showing them what's possible. Because like I said, man, at one point in my life, I weighed 315 pounds. Today, I'm 197 or 198 or whatever it was. It all came from like going through the process, learning the things that he teaches and going through our program and really just focusing on personal development, just trying to become the best version of myself, getting started on the life that I truly want to live and have. And, so again, that's part of the routine, man. I got healthier. I started focusing on my genetics. I focus on my gratitude every day. I write down 5 things I'm grateful for is the first thing I do. I come in and I work hard. Like we've talked about this whole episode, man, everything comes from putting in the hard work, even when you don't necessarily want to do it. And I focus on the people I'm surrounded by, my group. I've got Ryan, I've got mentors, I've got great people like yourself who I get to connect with and have these kinds of powerful conversations. I've got my wife and my son, my family. I've got the people that are around me. These are all the things that I've been able to focus on and get serious about. And really, it has allowed me to get started on creating the most elite version of myself and creating the life that I truly know is out there for me.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So now I know here recently you've come out with the Closer Memes course. Tell everybody a little bit about what that is, what it entails, and how they can go about finding that and getting a hold of that if that's something that interests them.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the shout out on that. So about
No problem. I thought it was the coolest thing when I first saw it. I was like, wait, you're using memes to close sale? This I've got to see. So,
yeah, so a little backstory. I love memes and silly GIFs. Like when I found out I could start using GIFs on Facebook and in responses, like I just went gangbusters with it. But what I also found is that what's interesting about memes and GIFs is they're kind of like a pattern interrupt. It doesn't really matter who you are, what your sex, race, culture, creed, like none of that matters. Almost everybody loves a funny meme. And so I've always been into the meme culture and sharing silly memes. What I didn't realize is that I was using them in my sales and my business process, like not recognizing the fact that I was doing it. So basically what I realized is that I was having conversations, having sales conversations, connecting with people. And if they would go ghost, instead of just sending the same canned messages, hey, I haven't heard from you, just checking in, wanted to see what you're up to. Do you still want to buy X? I just started sending funny GIFs and memes. Like I send one that's like, when people go ghost on me, there's a Jim Carrey GIF where he's like, it's from the Ace Ventura movie and he's looking in the camera like this. And it just says, hey, are you there? And so I just started sending a funny GIF to people that ghosted me, and I started getting a shitload of responses. Like people that had ghosted me for months all of a sudden were like, oh my God, that's a hilarious GIF. Yeah, sorry, I ghosted you. This is what I've been up to. And so I started closing some deals with it. And then I thought to myself, well, if I can close deals in the DMs with GIFs, I wonder if I can get people to reach out to me using memes and GIFs. So I went on this crazy run where I started building a new meme every single day, like creating my own custom meme every single day for our phone site software. So every day I would come up with a new meme and a new ad basically, and I'd post it in one of our groups. And I started getting people to sign up for our platform using the memes and the GIFs. I was just like, this is crazy. And I've seen big businesses use them. So like Wendy's and McDonald's and all these like big corporations use memes in their marketing and their advertising. They even go so far as to try to make themselves a meme by doing silly things. So I knew there was like a correlation with memes and business. What I ended up doing is going through and saying, all right, what is my process when I use a meme or I create a meme for this purpose? Like, what are the steps that I take? So I basically broke them all down into an outline, and I put it in like a course style thing. And it basically gives people everything they need to source, create, and implement memes and GIFs in their business and in their marketing and sales process to drive massive engagement. Because people love memes. So if you can get people to engage with those memes, there's a good chance you can get them then to reach out to you to discuss your product or service that you offer if you do it in the right way. Like nobody wants a spammy MLM pitch, but if you're funny and engaging, people buy from someone they know, like, and trust. So if you can create that rapport using a GIF or a meme, it makes it a lot easier for someone to reach out to you and say, hey, I'd love to know more about whatever product or service that you offer.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I never would have even, furthest thing from my mind was closing a deal with a GIF or a meme or anything like that. And so, man, all right. It's been great chatting with you. About time to wrap this thing up. So I've got to ask you one thing, one key important thing that I typically ask everybody. What is the absolute best piece of advice you can offer for those out there who are skeptical about the whole build your dream lifestyle movement, but they just know that their current lifestyle isn't working anymore? Like, what kind of value can you impart on someone who's in a situation where they work all week, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, just trying to make ends meet, have no idea how to begin to break free of that typical slave life that so many people get caught up in?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Thank you again for having me on. I know I talk a lot, so I'm sure I ran over on what you planned this episode to be.
Oh, no, man, you're absolutely fine.
I appreciate it. If there was any one piece of advice that I could leave for those who are in, the grind and they're trying to figure out how to get out of that grind and start their own thing, would be, you got to do it. You got to make that decision. At the end of the day, you are the only person who can design and go after your dreams and after what you truly want in this world. And at some point, you're going to have to make the decision to go for them. I know you're working, you got a paycheck that you got to focus on, but the only way to get to that point is to take the step and go after it. So if there's any one piece of advice I can leave, it truly would be make the decision to go all in on getting what you want out of life.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's some great advice, man. I don't know that I could have said anything as good as that myself. Drew, man, it's been great having you here, man. I love seeing you all the time on my feed, on my social media. I love watching what you're doing, man. And it's an honor to know you, man. You've come so far just in the little bit of time that I've known you, that you're an inspiration. You provide motivation for me, and I'm sure several others. And my daughter's over here trying to say hi and making every face she can to get on the camera.
I see that. Well, hey, man, thank you again, Sean, for having me on. It is an absolute honor and a pleasure to get to share the stage with you. I know you're a busy guy and you've got a lot of great things going on. So the fact that you reached out to me and asked me to be a part of this, it just means the world to me. For anybody that wants to make a better life for themselves, there's so much opportunity out there for it to happen. The biggest thing is, like I said before, you truly have to decide that's what you want to have in life and to be willing to do what it takes to get there. So if there's anything I can offer as far as advice for your listeners or anybody that, sees this in the future, has questions, you can find me on Facebook at Drewbie Rides. On Instagram, it's facebook.com/Drewbie Rides. Reach out to me, connect with me, let me know you're struggling or you need help with something. I've done a whole bunch of different crazy, weird jobs. Luckily had a bit of success in each of them. So if there's any advice I can provide, I would be more than happy to do that. If you're somebody that loves memes and you want to use memes in your business or in your marketing practice, or you just want to know how you can use memes to make more money and get more engagement on social media, just check out closermemes.com. It's pretty easy. It's a cool course. It's only like $47, so it's kind of a no-brainer. But more importantly, man, at the end of the day, this podcast is about getting started. So if there's anything I want to leave the audience with, it is, if you want it, you got to get started going after it. Long journeys start with a single step, and that's where you need to go next.
Awesome, brother. Awesome, man. Drewbie, man, it's been an honor to have you here, man. Hopefully, man, we can get together at some point in time, and I'll do a where are they now and see just how far you've gone from now. So that's it for this show, everybody. Definitely, check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and by all means, go out, find Drewbie. If you have questions about anything Drewbie has said here today, or if you just want to talk to a really cool guy in general, find him out, man. He's an amazing individual, and he's going to be doing bigger things than he has now. So that's it for me. And y'all have a great rest of the day.
All right. Go crush the day before it crushes you, Sean.